Joining us now, Congressman, 7th District Republican Dr. Dave Brat. Dr. Brat, good to have you, man.
Great to be on. Great week.
Okay, now, I got to tell you, I was really fired up on Friday. I had great seats there in the congressional sections, my wife and I, 3 sections down. I got to tell you, Congressman, I thought, now, look, I'm a believer in the movement, right? So I'm not going to be shy about it. I've been for Trump since before he announced, and I'm an enthusiastic, true believer in the movement. So I thought his inaugural speech was phenomenal. People were saying it was divisive. He said he's going to put America first, stop subsidizing foreign armies, get out of these wars, bring jobs back, wealth back, prosperity back. I thought it was a phenomenal speech, yet the mainstream media blasting it. George Will had a column the other day. Somebody said to me saying that it was the worst speech ever. What's the disconnect here? Or is it just me?
No, it's not you. I think it's pretty apparent, and it's all economics as usual. Anyone that was tied to the self-interest of the prior status quo is upset because their world is losing its influence, and now influence is going to the American people, of all things. And it's the funniest commentary I heard over the weekend, this vision he has isn't conservative, liberal, populist, whatever. Dennis Kucinich, the past Democrat governor of Ohio, ran for president.
Right.
He said he gave the same speech back in the 1960s, right? And so when the left gives that speech about let's put Americans first and find them jobs and educate our kids, it's Kennedy-esque, and it gets glowing remarks from the left. But when Trump gives it, because he tells the truth, and the mainstream media just cannot handle the idea that he's going to get the credit, and I think the good results of lifting our kids out of poverty and getting the school system going again and getting the economy going again and making the United States military strong again. If Donald Trump pulls that off, when all the liberal favorites couldn't pull it off, you can see why they're potentially upset, and they're trying to almost intentionally break it up from day one. Chuck Todd yesterday on Meet the Press was just apoplectic. I mean, he was just losing his marbles, and it's available for all to see. And so it will all depend on outcomes, right? We're all going to wait to see, can we get this ship turned around and going again? And I think we can. I'm pretty optimistic.
Okay, now, Dr. Brat, what was your colleague's reaction to Trump when he basically called the politicians out? And he said, yeah, these people behind me, they get reelected, they celebrate with champagne, they don't do anything to help you at all, they're all talk, and now it's time for action. What was the reaction to that? He kind of called them out, right?
Yeah, not much of a reaction. I mean, I'm in the House Freedom Caucus, so we ran on that, right? We all ran on listening to the American people.
Right.
And I obviously ran as an outsider and had a big outsider win a few years back. And so the folks I'm sitting with are on the team. And then the other politicians, I mean, you've seen it, right? You made calls early on, but now everyone's jumping ship and is on the Trump train up there. I mean, everybody that opposed him. There's very few like George Will who have just totally opted out. And so most of the other guys now, they say, oh, I was with him the whole way. We've always been listening to the American people. You know, we've always been working hard for small business. We've always been concerned about education, all that kind of thing. So the voters have to make up their mind whether they're got the right guy or not, and that's up to the voters.
Well, we're going to find out, and I kind of got the feeling that if there was opposition to some of Trump's agenda, because he really believes in this stuff. I mean, I've been saying this for some time. This guy believes exactly what he says. He's been saying it over and over and over for a very long time, decades. Yep. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think he would hesitate to back people in primaries. And that's going to be interesting, Congressman, to see that unfold. This just in from CNN while we're on the air, and the Washington Post reporting from 2 sources in the Trump administration saying that his first executive action today at 8:30 a.m. is going to sign an executive order to withdraw the United States from the Trans-Pacific Partnership Deal, TPP. That's going to happen today. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, it's another absolute shocking turnaround, right? Now you have all the elites. I mean, I've been watching former trade reps who have been diametrically opposed to Trump throughout, and the talking heads, and now everybody is getting the Trump logic, and they're saying, well, of course, everybody now says, of course, you got to have trade deals that are good for the American people. Well, where have they been for the past decades, right? I mean, it's not hard, right? In theory, both countries win, and that there is truth in that. But that doesn't mean the people within each country win, right? In all these trade agreements, Trump's pointed out all the elites get the lines, right? Why are there 5,000-page trade agreements? Because you got to go through every huge, corporate crony that has a special line written for them, and the average American person doesn't have a line written for them. Mm-hmm. And so now everybody's on board. Oh, we got to do, trade, and so we'll see what it all looks like, right? I'm still a free trader, and Trump, he's just drawn a line in the sand and said, look, we got to level the playing field. And now he's putting the heat on China, and all of a sudden everybody's on board the Trump train there. Yeah, well, I heard on the Sunday shows yesterday, even Fareed Zachariah's show, right? He's very left, very critical of Trump. All of his cronies even were saying, well, China has been kind of free riding on us, right? We've worked very hard to incorporate them into the post-World War II liberal trading order, and they've taken advantage of it a little bit. And so even the elites now are acknowledging all of this. And so, okay, so then what do we got to do to get a level playing field so our small business guys can compete when we impose all these costs on our businesses, right? OSHA, safety, labor, EPA, it just goes fiduciary rule, franchisee rule, $2.5 trillion in regulation a year we impose on our business. China does not impose those costs. So they can produce a good for much cheaper, and then we have the nerve to tell our citizens, hey, good luck. No, we believe in free trade out there, right? We don't have any free trade in our country. We regulate the daylights out of everything. And so you're at a disadvantage, but we believe in free trade out here for the elite. So good luck to you guys. Go trade with China and see how you do. And everybody now knows that narrative needs to be fixed big time. Unbelievable.
All right, Dr. Brat, let's get to, but before, though, we get to Obamacare and those executive actions, you mentioned TPP, and it's great that you said, wow, now that Trump's in, people are changing their tune. When TPP was first announced, right, and it was bubbling up, let's just remind ourselves of some of the Republicans who are 100% behind it. Your leader, Paul Ryan, Kevin McCarthy, Randy Forbes, your colleague, Scott Ridgell, your colleague at the time, both of them no longer in Congress, Senator Ted Cruz. There's just a handful of people that were in favor of it when it came out. Now, all of them, like you say, Johnny-come-lately is on the Trump train. But here's the good news, right? Logic has prevailed. But just to remind someone, now, Dave Brat, on the other hand, was opposed to it from the start. So I just want to point that out, Dave, that all your friends,
appreciate it.
All your friends
it's
now,
hard to get the message out.
All your friends now,
on the Iran deal. I was one of the handful that voted no on that.
That's right.
Corker Cardin business,
and that's not long for this world either. President Trump on Friday afternoon at 3:00, in some of his initial actions, taking the underpinnings out of Obamacare with executive orders, basically bringing into question now whether the Internal Revenue Service can institute the penalty for people that don't sign up for Obamacare or any insurance. How real is that, and what type of an impact will that have, Congressman?
Well, that'll have the first, shot fired kind of effect. It's symbolic. It does have some real world implications. But I'll tell you right now, what everybody's got to do is keep your eye on the U.S. Senate. When it comes to Obamacare repeal and replace, the Democrats are marching loud and just ridiculing Republicans for repeal and replace right now. And people back home, they have talked about it. They're saying CBO shows 20 million people are going to lose coverage, and rates are going to go up under the Republican plan. Well, that's not true. That's what's true of a repeal. And if you just get rid of it, then that shows you how crazy the CBO scores are, right? The idea that you can get rid of 18 million people on insurance and the costs go up I mean, it's so counterintuitive. So something's obviously missing. And what's missing is, of course, we're going to replace it with a better system.
Right.
And then they say, you don't have a plan. We have 9 plans. You and I have been over that on the radio. But I want everybody to write in the newspapers. I hope write to every list you have. If you don't get rid of the insurance regulations, this thing is going to be a disaster. Right? So the repeal and replace, we can repeal, and it has to do with this reconciliation process. I'm not going to go into detail, but Obama passed it with only 51 votes. Right? That's the way they got it through in the Senate. And so that's the only way you can get rid of it. But you can only get rid of things in reconciliation that have budget impact. And so the insurance regulations are off on their own, and they're the most costly piece of this puzzle. And so if you don't get rid of those insurance regs, and to do that, the Senate, Mitch McConnell, is going to have to change that parliamentarian and grow a backbone and go pretty hardcore on their own rules there. They have plenty of rules and procedures where they can get rid of these insurance regs if they choose to. But the Democrats and some of the folks who need a spinal implant are going to try to slow walk this thing so we end up with Obamacare light. And that ought to concern everybody, because if you get half free market and half federal government program, you know how that's going to turn out.
Worse.
So the big thing for everybody should email all your lists, everybody you know, and say, what's the Senate going to do on the insurance regs? And that's the biggest thing by far that matters.
So what is Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, what is he afraid of?
Well, they're seats, right? I mean, they got 52, but the next time around, it looks like we've got a huge advantage, right?
Huge.
So this is a once-a-century historic thing, and so the usual suspects up there have been delaying, right? We wanted to, at most, we voted on a 2015 plan that would have done repeal and replace in 2 years. Now there's debate about pushing it back to 3 years or further. Well, then you're right at the beginning of another Trump presidential run, and everybody's going to be nervous about the politics. And so you put it off 2 years to keep us safe. Then you put it off 3 years to keep the president safe. There's going to be an argument. And it's always politics, right? Politics always trumps the best interest of the American people. Mm-hmm. And so we need to get this thing done quick and make sure everybody has better health care. There's ways to do that. I have HSA plans. The left always comes in and says, yeah, but there's no money for that. There's tons of money. We're paying $17,000, according to Kaiser, right? Mm-hmm. The insurance folks, the average family of four is paying $17,000 a year for a package, and the deductibles are up at $5,000 or higher.
Higher.
And to think that you can't do better than that, and premiums are going 20, 30% up, and the Democrats come in with a couple of talking points, you say, what do you guys got? And it's absolute crickets on the other side. We have 9 plans, and so they're playing a cynical game that we don't have anything. We do, and they cannot name anything. And, of course, healthcare costs are the major drivers of everything. Medicare, right. Social Security, Medicaid, the veterans, everything is healthcare related. And so that's why everything's going bankrupt up in D.C.
I tell you what, I mentioned your HSA plan to Congressman Bobby Scott, your colleague in the 3rd District, the Democrat. I was in his office doing my show on Friday, I believe, and he was going bananas over this. And I said, all right, well, what about Dave's plan, where everybody gets an HSA, it's tax-free, and for those that are under the income threshold, the government takes $2,500 and just puts it in there, and then they've got money to buy coverage. Not buy coverage, they have money to pay for medical stuff they need. They have $2,500. You keep putting it in, and they can manage it, and therefore they're saved. They can make their own decisions. Everybody can then put their own money in. There is no insurance. You're paying. Everybody's paying for cash except the catastrophic end, and some of that can be subsidized. I said, why can't that plan work? You know what he said?
No.
Well, I need to see more of it. So, I mean, he couldn't even give me an argument why your plan would not work. So
yeah, well, he's been a fair guy to me. He's been he's a great person. He's very smart financially. He'll listen.
He'll have a
and
conversation.
So that's good news. The fact that he said that rather than a political argument to shut it down, at least he's willing to hear it. And then the key is, does he have a plan that he can name and point to that's better than the status quo?
No,
that's what we got to ask each other.
Their plan is to stay with what they have.
Yeah,
okay.
If that's the plan, that's totally broken, and everybody knows it.
Disaster. And they were trying to tell me how insurance costs have gone down. And I mean, their argument is so vacuous of any facts. All right, let's get to this march. 500,000 people, women, march descending on Washington, D.C. on Saturday. Why did they get so many? Well, Northern Virginia, Maryland. Remember, Washington, D.C. went for Clinton 97% to 3%. That's a higher percentage than Khrushchev got when he ran for re-election in the USSR. So many people coming from that metropolitan area. But we're trying to figure out, Congressman, what was the objective of this? I mean, Trump hasn't done anything. He's not said he was going to cut funding for Planned Parenthood. During the campaign, he was criticized from the right for saying that it plays an important function, that he would stay with it. They can't be upset about his LGBTQ policies because he's the first openly gay rights Republican to run for president in history. So what was the march about? What are they mad at? What did he do?
Yeah, well, Trump had a few crude moments along the way. So
yes.
That's the pretense. They're putting that up. But then the irony of ironies, as usual, is in order to protest crude behavior, the left has placards with every four-letter word known to mankind strewn across the entire mall, right? Can you imagine if the Tea Party or grassroots or the Trump folks or the Cruz folks came out, with 500,000 people with four-letter words on their signs, what the media would do?
Mm-hmm.
But Madonna is saying, I'm going to blow up the White House or something close to that. And then just swearing 3 F-bombs, I think, in her one speech alone on TV that CNN kept on the whole time. So they're just obsessed with, if Trump, gets in some crude language, it's just intolerable. But when the entire left does it, it's the Justice March, right? It's justice. They're raining down justice with their protests. So I mean, it's a total double standard. We all need to clean it up, right? I went to seminary, so we're going to clean it up. Trump has been keeping it clean, and so this is just pure politics to videos going back 20 years, et cetera. That no one's going to defend it morally. But that's not where we're at, right? He's the president of the United States. He's just elected in by the people. And so we have to listen to what the protest is, right? I represent all people. So what is it? But you're right. What is it? And it's not clear at all.
It's not clear. And anybody's got the right to peacefully march. I mean, that's part of our Constitution, right of assembly and everything else. But I'm just perplexed as to what the objective is. I can only imagine what's going to happen if he actually pursues policies they don't like, rather than some of the locker room comments that were made. We're out of time. I want to thank Congressman Dr. Dave Brat for being with us. Dave, people want more information. Where do they go?
Yeah, just DaveBrat.com, DaveBrat.com. And I try to explain all my votes, give the logic on the healthcare stuff. I spent a lot of time on that lately. I cover reconciliation, the budget resolution we just passed. So there's a lot of good info. I encourage everybody, sign up for my emails, tell your friends too. We all need to be educated on this so we can all message effectively because the Republicans we don't have a good track record when it comes to messaging. So the people have to do it, and that's the new day we're living in. I encourage everybody, come on out, read my stuff, forward it, and let's get everybody ready to go so we can keep the free market constitutional revolution going.
Thanks, Doc. More info, DaveBrat.com. How easy is that? And I signed up for his newsletter, and it's great. You don't want to miss that. DaveBrat.com. Dave, thanks for being with us. Always a pleasure to have you on. I'll see you next week, or I'll see you up in D.C. Keep it right here.